we are talking about the customers' rights?
Mm-hmm. So I think obviously the customer is concerned about the privacy of the information. What is the information used for, right? And I think here there is the right for transparency. The customer can call and say like, hey, you have ask me all these kind of questions. What are you doing with the information? How long is it stored? What at what moment will it be deleted, for example? And these informations, this right for transparency and also the right for protection is obviously there for the customer. And we as banks will answer these questions to the individuals if we ask that way.
But all this, does this go against GDPR?
I don't think so. I mean, GDPR, which stands for the General Data Protection Regulation, there's a number of principles in the GDPR. It starts with the lawfulness of something, right? And I think here the underlying law is for us the AML, which forces us to demand that collected information. It is about a fair and transparent process. I believe we have provided a lot of details on our website also in terms of these privacy and security of that information. And it is the most important thing for me in GDPR is the purpose limitation of when data can be used. And I think there's probably still a bit of a misunderstanding. Why does the bank ask all this information? Are they now trying to, come up with a profile to sell me the next television set? This is not the idea, like the purpose is limited to simply create a profile of the customer and compare that profile to the daily transactions in order to find suspicious activity. And this suspicious activity is there to protect the customer from anything that is going. Somebody could take over his account and take his money away, but also to protect the system. And that is the limitation. We would not collect that information to then come up with the next commercial campaign to sell some products to the customer. That is not the idea. But I think that is for me the core of why I believe the GDPR principles apply. And I think we have a fair and transparent process around it. Yes.
But for instance, in GDPR is the right, let's say, to be forget. Yeah, it's applicable also in this case.
Yes, it is. I
if
think
a person asks for this.
Indeed, I think there is obviously we have GDPR rules around how long data would be stored. So if we had a customer relationship exited at a certain point in time, we have the right to hold that information for a certain period, which is also determined. And after that, the information is deleted. And if the customer years later shows up again and says like, hey, I want to open a relationship, there's nothing that we would use from the past to hold against it. We would compare to anything at that moment that the customer presents.
So the consumer should understand that also this regulation that you should keep the data for some period of time, for which is depending of what exactly you use this data for, but it's legal and you should keep it. Also after this period, they will be deleted if they ask for this. Okay.
Exactly. We have data retention requirements that are indeed coming from GDPR. So we have ourselves policies in place which give different timelines for different sets of data. And after that data or the time limit is reached, the data will be automatically deleted. And that means if the customer would show up after that particular point in time, there would be no data available to check and hold against the customer. Everything is then a fresh relationship.
Okay, and the clients are notified regarding this need to update their data?
Yes, I think we have taken a very proactive approach there. We are starting pretty much 3 months prior to the expiration date when this banking passport is coming due. We're starting 3 months before to inform the customers on the different channels. We have the email address of the customer. We have the telephone number. We give customers call. We send messages. We have in our home bank app, we have banners placed there. And obviously, the closer we get to that expiration date, the more active we become, because we just want to avoid the situation where this whole relationship freezes. So the goal is for us indeed to nudge and urge the customer in that 3 months period to take the action and update the relationship, update the information with us so that we can continue the relationship. And we have like 3 moments in that 3 months period where we kind of like, again, send a reminder, give a call. And I think it differs a bit by customer type, but in principle, it is a 3 months period, which we have seen as sufficient for most customers to work out that way.
But who is setting this expiration date? So it's the same for all the banks?
No, it is. Yes, it is a good question. There is in the law there is a flexibility given to all the banks, and I think all the banks try to align a bit around that time frame of between 1 year to 5 years, roughly. I think when I look at different surveys that are done amongst banks, somewhere between 1 year to 5 years is the review period, and the law gives all the banks the chance to take what we call a risk-based approach. So we could say, okay, if we believe that a certain customer profile is a bit more risky than another, we could have it a bit more frequent. And in principle, we could ask a customer every day for information. If we see a transaction that doesn't feel to make sense, we could reach out immediately and say like, hey, we need some information about it. But also that is a huge strain on the operation, so we try to minimize that as well. So every bank is trying to be between, like, I think it is 1 to 5 year area, and I think that is also in coordination. That was what the regulator expects, how often these kind of relationships should be reviewed.
I see. And if a client refuses to update their banking information, what is happening?
Yeah, I think if we look at the relationship in itself, if a customer indeed passes the review date and has not updated information at this very first moment, we are asked to freeze the account. So if there's any incoming still, we will collect these incomings for customer. We will try to get in contact with the customer because it is his money, and we want to know what we need to do with it. But the customer can at that moment not do any more transactions, cannot go to the ATM machine and get the money out. The account is literally frozen, and we have to find a way of either getting the update done later so that everything gets reactivated, or the customer might have a reason to not give us the information, and then we would like to have another banking contact from him where we can then just transfer the money, and it would be then the customer exit. So that is the scenario around the relationship. Obviously, we also report on transactions. So if the law requires us to detect suspicious activity. So we go every day through millions of transactions, and if we find some transaction that on first appearance looks suspicious, but we need additional information, then we would call the customer. And many customers provide us information, say, yeah, look, I had a bigger cash coming in because, I got married, these are all presents, or I had to sell my car. So there's all legit reasons, and once we know these reasons, you collect it, you say, okay, there's nothing suspicious about it, we move on. But obviously, if a customer does not provide that information, it makes that transaction even more suspicious. Like, why does he not provide that information? Because it's for us then that the next step would be then to report such an activity to the financial authority and say, like, look, it's a suspicious activity, we cannot explain it, it looks strange what happened here, it doesn't match the profile. And from then on, it is a bit out of our hands, and the financial intelligence unit would take over.